Good morning, Dylan with Huntsville Guns. I wanted to do a follow-up video. The other day we covered the 742 Woodmaster from Remington. Kind of briefly grazed over the issue I had with this particular firearm. And I have it apart now. I wanted to cover a little more in detail what it is that I'm looking for, and then why the issues exist like they do with this particular series of guns. Again, this is a 742 Woodmaster. It's a Remington semi-auto. This particular gun is in 30-06. Customer brought it in for a cleaning, and because the bolt was locked forward, it was kind of locked up. Turned out that it was incredibly dirty, and there was some carbon fouling around the gas port that created some issues. But this particular gun is a really good example of what can happen to these guns, and said I wanted to show you a better view of the damage and then kind of the situation that creates. This is kind of a difficult thing to film just because of the damaged surfaces being in the receiver of this gun. So stick with me. It's gonna fight me a little bit. The autofocus on the camera is gonna give me a little bit of issues. I'm gonna try to use the lighting to the best of my ability to get you a good look at the damage and how that creates issues. So I've disassembled the firearm. I partially reassembled the bolt. So I basically put the bolt head back in the bolt body and then its retainer. But I don't have any of the small components in there. This is just so I can easily put them together and take them apart and show you how they interact. So the bolt sits in the receiver like this. There's we'll call this the top lug, and then the left side and the right side. The right side is where your charging handle would be installed. And then the bolt cams in the bolt body like so. And so these lugs here on the bolt head are the primary cause for damage to the receiver of this firearm. When the bolt travels all the way to the back of the receiver, there's a small cutout here in the back where the tail end of the bolt goes into, and the bolt will be unlocked. And when it gets to that rearwardmost position, the bolt has a tendency, it's hard to film, but there's a little bit of over travel, a little bit of slop in it that will cause it to kind of over rotate a little bit, and that over rotation is what causes the damage we looked at in the last video. Let me see if I can get you in for a little bit closer view. There we go. So if you look here, focus for me. Let me see if I can get it to focus. Give me 1 second. There we go. You can see this rolled material. This is where the lugs on that bolt head are over rotating into that side of this raceway and causing damage. You can actually see some damage here on the bottom of this raceway where those bolt head lugs are chewing this up. Additionally, this receiver has some damage that I don't see too often, but I have seen maybe not quite as bad as this before. Let me see if I can flip you. Okay, so here we go. If you look here, this is the edge of that raceway we're looking at in the bottom of the receiver. There's a fair bit of material here that's been pushed over as well. You can actually, it's got an edge on it that's fairly sharp. I can catch it with the pick, definitely catch it with your fingernail. And so, put the bolt in here. As the bolt unlocks, so this would be forward with it locked, ready to fire. As the bolt unlocks, again, not the easiest thing to film. The bolt unlocks, the bolt body is moving rearward, and I guess when it gets nearly unlocked, it's already moving rearward. The bolt head is as well. And so the lugs here on the bottom of the bolt are chewing up the side of that rail. You can see where it's dragging, and it's camming the bolt in the process. The bolt body itself and the bolt head are camming. And so this is what causes these guns to jam. Let me zoom back out for you a little bit. So as this bolt is in the receiver, the action bars are pushing rearward on it. And that's what causes that rotation to unlock the firearm. And with this damage in the receiver, it causes the bolt to cant ever so slightly in the receiver, and that puts bind on all of the lugs in the raceways. And then you get to the rear, and it's got this teeth mark damage, and as the bolt is cycling back forward, that vibration and tighter fit cause the bolt to cam and do all kinds of weird stuff, and that's what makes these guns jam. Ultimately, this firearm is probably right on the edge of what I would consider safe to shoot. Like I said, with the damage that's in there, it's not going to get any better. And I don't think that beyond refinishing the whole receiver and said tigging up that material, then you run into issues with heat treat and refinishing all of the blued surfaces and finding an end mill to fit down in that slot. That's a fairly long reach for a small end mill. Creates some potential for some heartache in the future. I said this gun is probably right on the edge of what I would consider safe to continue shooting. It's unfortunately, the combination of it being dirty when it came in and the damage that it has is what was causing it to jam and to bind. Even now that it will be cleaned when I'm finished with it and reassembled, it will probably still cycle until it gets slightly dirty, and then it's just going to continue to jam. Like I said, not the easiest thing to film, but after the last video, I had a bunch of comments. Like I said, there are probably 1 million of these guns in circulation still. There are lots of them that are still being used. I wanted to give you a better look at what it is that I'm looking for to consider something still safe to use, and then also what causes the problems with it. Thanks for hanging out this morning. I hope this was helpful. Have a great day.